Hi, I'm Darren. I'm the editor of South Bay Home Magazine. I want to thank you all for joining us here tonight for our second annual Design and Wine event. I want to thank a few people first before we get started with our panelists up here. I want to thank our sponsor for the evening, Ferguson, who's hosting us here, Ferguson Showroom. Round of applause for Ferguson. It's a beautiful, beautiful showroom here. And I especially want to point out one of their featured brands, Dornbracht, which is also one of our sponsors here tonight. We'll hear a little bit more about that brand in a little bit. Can you hear me? No, not great? How about that? Should I button this up and be a little bit more tasteful? Yeah, okay, here we go. We'll try that. All right. It is a company event. Okay. More people to thank. Excuse me one second. I want to thank Scholl Brewery. If you haven't tried our Moontide Ale yet, it is epic. And also Barsha Wines. Both these guys have been huge partners to us over many events, and we're so thankful that you guys keep offering new things every event that's brand new and fun for our guests to try. Thank you. And I also want to thank Choura Events. Choura Events has also been a partner with us, I mean, for years now. They do amazing events here around the South Bay, and we thank them for being a continued partner with us as well. It's hard to believe with 80-degree weather this weekend, 90s coming this weekend, that the holidays are upon us, but they're coming, and with that comes entertaining. And we thought it'd be appropriate tonight, after our fall launch of Home, to talk a little bit with some experts in the area who are artificial party animals, people who go out of their way year after year to put on amazing events in different ways. So I first want to introduce to you Lauren Alexander from DACHA in Manhattan Beach. She's an interior designer, and she's actually featured in this current issue of Home, if you check that out. Kara Mickelson is one of my deputy editors, and she's also a stylist for us, a food stylist. If you have seen any of our covers of the magazine for the food issues, she is the genius behind those, so I want to welcome Kara. And we also have Kate Libor. She is from Choura Events, who is also one of our partners here. And as I mentioned, do a lot of wonderful big events here in the South Bay. So welcome, Kat. Okay, let's get down to business here. First, I was thinking back on my first holiday party, and it was a little hard for me to remember one that my parents threw. But I want to ask each of you, what was your first memory of a holiday party when you were younger?
Are we starting?
Yeah, start with you. Yeah.
Not specific, but my mom entertained quite a bit, which is why I think I love to do the same. But I am an only child, and when I was young, I was always the only kid at the party, and I just remember being a little person in a room. There was never like a kid's room or a kid's table. It was just all adults and me wandering around and eavesdropping on conversations. And I think a lot of times you don't see that anymore. Kids are usually on an iPad or kind of in the other room, but it's a great education, or was a great education for me, just being surrounded by beautiful things and festivity and stimulating conversation and good times. And obviously that kind of laid the foundation for me to be doing what I'm doing now.
Kara, how about you?
You know, I don't have like a specific memory of an event that my parents did, but I do have a very vivid memory of an event that I did, and that was before I got into the culinary world, and I planned an event. It was at the Biltmore Hotel, 3,000 people for Toyota Motor Sales. So it was a big event, very memorable, and at that time, it was very much into the whole Christmas spirit. You know, it was before the Happy Holidays or Season's Greetings, so lots of trees and just the mood, you know, just that energy that you get when you get to that time of year, the season where everything's festive and, you know, lets you reflect back on what you did for the year and the coming year. And so that has just like it obviously was a big event, so a big memory.
Yeah, great. What about you, Kat?
Well, I don't know if I remember my first holiday event, but one that stuck with me was definitely, I grew up in Ireland. I moved here when I was 15 years old. I lived in Austria for a while, so a lot of traditions that kind of run through my family. So we start Christmas on the 24th, and it goes all the way through the 26th. And I would say that the 26th of December is definitely one of my favorite days, which is Boxing Day. I'm sure some of you are familiar with it, where just like America on Thanksgiving, all American football plays and everybody eats food. That's what Boxing Day is for us. So 20 Premier League teams play soccer, and we eat food and we get together, and that whole 3-day event was amazing. So I think this is why I love events that don't stop and that keep going and that involve great food and booze.
Awesome. Definitely booze. So let's talk a little bit about the modern party and setting the tone for that type of event. What should a host be looking for as far as atmosphere and setting the tone with a party, a smaller party gathering being held in, 2012, or 2017? 2012. I wonder if that was a good year.
Regardless of the year, I think number one priority is the host or hostess's mood, attitude. You set the tone, minimizing stress, and every party is bound to have some sort of faux pas or party foul. Something may break, something may spill, someone doesn't show up, something doesn't cook properly. But it's just like rule number one for a host not to freak out, roll with the punches, make your guests feel at home. And there's nothing more unpleasant in a gathering than when the host is stressed out, because then the whole party, the mood is shot. So I'd say number one, just set the tone for your guests by being in a good mood yourself and having a good time yourself so that your guests will have a good time. And whatever you need to do to make that happen, whether it's pre-batching cocktails, streamlining your menu, getting as much done ahead of time so that you can enjoy yourself is a really big deal. Music is another big deal that I think often people kind of overlook, and music is an afterthought, but that sets the tone for an evening really importantly. So have a playlist, use Spotify, use Pandora. If you don't have an account that you pay for, it's kind of a bummer when advertisements come on when you're playing your holiday playlist. So I would say either upgrade and buy a subscription, or go buy a CD. Go to anywhere and get like a loungy, jazzy, hip holiday CD. Everything Brian has been playing this evening is like case in
really
point.
good, yeah.
Really setting a good tone, upbeat, nothing too intense, just kind of jazzy and cool all night. And make sure people, when they walk in the door, are greeted nicely, have food out, have drinks out, and just be prepared and ready to welcome people and make them feel at home when they get there.
Great. Kat and I had talked a little bit about this before the panel tonight. We'll get to larger events in a second, but Kat, when you were talking about sometimes when you have entertainment, that sometimes it could be a little bit too much entertainment, a little overstimulating, and I want to hear a little bit about your take on that for those who might be either throwing a bigger party or even an intimate party. How does entertainment sometimes get in the way at a holiday party?
I do like that you brought that up, because it is one of my bigger pet peeves, is when the event becomes so overstimulating to where you don't feel connected to the event anymore. So your entertainment needs to serve a purpose. It has to connect to the reason of your event. Why are you throwing the event? What's the emotion you want people to feel? And you want to connect that directly to the entertainment. If your entertainment is so overwhelming that people can't connect, then you've already lost the audience. So too much, you're also taking away from your wow factor. If you're trying to plan that one big moment that people remember, that you want people to tweet about or Instagram about on social media, make sure that you're leaving them with something that they remember. So if you have too much going on all at once, it kind of overstimulates the audience. It takes away your focus from the event.
Plus you're dealing with, people's conversations and, that noise that comes with that as well. You kind of have to be careful with your levels, I would think.
Exactly. So timing is very important.
Okay.
The amount of entertainment is very important. And then also you don't want the entertainment to take all of your budget away, because then you miss other important things like food.
Right.
Having good food there. Yeah?
Absolutely. Great. I want to talk a little bit about decor first before we get into food with Choura, because we have lots to talk about. Decor trends, what are you seeing this year as far as holiday? I know everyone immediately thinks of Christmas or, with red and green, Thanksgiving, the oranges and the browns. We try to do some things differently with the magazine and trying to introduce some other colors, palettes. What are you seeing for this year, for 2017?
For sure, like what we did this evening with our tablescape, I think a lot of natural elements. It's hands down the hottest trend that I see everywhere. Foraged, gathered, which doesn't mean you have to do that yourself. You can hire a professional to do that for you, but that look is really popular. And just having a lot of earthy elements, neutral color palette, mixed metals, which I talked about before too, which is neutral but not boring. It still has a lot of pop and wow factor to do. Mixed silvers, gold. Unusual colors, like you said, not a traditional green and red. Maybe you do like an all pink Christmas or blues and silvers, but like pick a color and kind of go with that theme. Something else, I don't know if I'd call this a trend, but something I really enjoy and I think people enjoy in general is embracing different cultural traditions in your celebration. So, you know, a lot of us have families from all over the world, and I think it's really nice, like, for instance, my family's from Russia. I think it's really nice to have kind of an element that maybe is a little unexpected. Maybe, for me, I would do like a vodka and caviar bar at a gathering, but something that kind of embraces your heritage and people enjoy seeing those different traditions, serving a food that's traditional to where your family comes from, I think is a really great, unusual element to have at a party.
Oh, I like that. Do you do signature cocktails as well? Have you ever done those? Or Kara, you've talked a little about signature cocktails too.
Sure.
Yeah.
One of the things that we talked about a little bit is that it's not just cocktails, it's also mocktails are big right now.
Right.
So you're seeing, just even in restaurant menus as well, where you walk in and then they have a full like sheet of all these different drinks. You know, there are tonics, there are elixirs, there are fresh ingredients, there's aromatics, there's herbs, there's fresh fruit, and natural sweeteners, probably like more like honey and maple, coconut sugar. So those are the types of things that we're seeing at parties as well. So it's not just somebody wanting to do a full cocktail bar, but maybe a mocktail bar. And again, I think you had mentioned as well, like setting that up in advance, maybe doing a self-serve setup is really good idea, so you don't have to be tied to getting people's drinks, and then even maybe doing like a signature drink. So when people walk in the door, you have a drink ready for them. And then you're not running and get the gimlet or the smoked Manhattan or something. You're just you have the drink, you hand that out. If they don't want it, they don't have to take it, and then you can take orders for drinks later.
Yeah, one of my things that I always do at parties when I host is I'm always behind the bar making drinks. I usually don't hire a bartender. I'm running around helping people with things, which is what a host does. But you also want to be around your friends and chat with your family and be part of the event. What other things can you do to help prepare for a party? Things you could do in advance, like making the drinks in advance. What are some other things you can do that would help in a situation for a host like that that's maybe going solo?
I think a lot of it, everything nowadays is a little bit like do it yourself. So, can you hear me? Is that better? I'm really bad with mics. If you just think about like everything we do now, there's just not a lot of service, but it's part of the way things are. So you can set up for a brunch, you can set up pre-made waffles, and then put a toaster there so people can warm them up, and then they can put all the fixings, everything that is going to go on those on their own. You can get your drinks made in advance so they can do that. Some little tricks that you're going to do that maybe a caterer would think about is if you have a cheese tray, instead of when the cheese tray is destroyed and going and trying to redo it, already have a second one made up or a third one, and then have that in your refrigerator. So then you can just replace that really easily. And then don't be afraid to ask people to help. Everybody's always in the kitchen, right? So get an apron and have them help out. And most people really appreciate that, unless it's a super formal event or a corporate event. But I think if it's a home event, it's a smaller group, you really want to get people involved and take the pressure off, so you're not a stressed high toxic energy person when people arrive. You want to really create that mood, and it is the music, it is the beautiful table, but more importantly, it's your mood. So if you're there, you're having a good time, and you're relaxed, and you're welcoming people, then they're going to have a good time too. you're going to want to entertain more.
I agree. Kat, let's talk a little bit about bigger events, because I know the holidays we're also going to see a lot of charity events, fundraisers, fashion shows, especially here in the South Bay. I know our calendar's loaded with those. For larger events, why should you hire an event planner? And I mean, it's an obvious need, I believe, but tell me a little bit about the benefits of having an event planner, especially for a larger event, maybe even one at a house. If you had, say, 50 guests at your house for a party, why is that a good idea?
So I always like to say that an event planner is kind of like an insurance policy on your sanity, if you will. Your event planner is your professional. And much like picking a psychiatrist, picking an event planner, same thing, pick the right one. Yeah. Do your research, make sure they know what they're talking about, what they're doing, do they have experience, what's their portfolio like, and then, because you need to trust them, right? Your entire event is going to be in their hands. When you pick your right event planner, the most important thing is that you're going to get to live in the moment, enjoy your own event, spend time with your friends, with your family, with your guests, and you get to actually experience it and see what it's all about, rather than just running around like you're saying and you're stressing out and you're refilling the queso dip and you're making sure the sangria doesn't run low. It's in your expert's hands. Now, when it gets to larger events, it also helps that your event planner not only has a plan B, but also a plan C, D, and E. What happens if it rains? What happens if the power goes out? What happens if the caterer is late? What happens if you run out of booze? There are people that are working behind the scenes very quietly to make sure that your event goes smoothly, and none of your guests will know what's happening behind the scenes, so they're enjoying the moment as well.
Great. As far as budget, I know obviously with hiring an event planner, that is something you have to think about when you're incorporating that into your budget. But where do you see money often wasted on events? And this is really a question for any of you, including Kat. Where do you see in the parties you've thrown, either smaller or larger, where is that money wasted completely on something that was not used or not needed, do you think?
So, should I keep?
You go ahead.
Okay.
Back you up.
I would say actually hiring an event planner might seem very expensive up front at times, but it's a very good way to spend your money, because in the long run, the event planner will save you money. The event planner has the locations, they know the venue, they know how much things should cost, much like going to a mechanic. Your event planner is going to talk to your AV person, to your power person, to your florist. They know what you're supposed to have and what you're not supposed to have and how much it should cost. And things don't happen last minute because your planner plans in advance for the things that could happen. So because you're not buying things last minute, it ends up being much less expensive. A place where people misspend their money, I find, is they spend it on stuff rather than infrastructure, right? And commodities don't build a great, memorable event. What builds a good event is a team that really brainstorms, brings good ideas, cares about the guest experience, and then builds something out that everybody will remember for a very long time. Yeah, and that's not putting just a bunch of stuff into one space and saying, now go enjoy yourself.
Right, it has to be thought out. And
the second you walk through the door, what do you feel? What do you experience to the moment that you leave?
Great.
I would add, and I think this is on the food side as well, is start with the budget. Because I find sometimes people think, oh, if I don't tell them how much I have to spend, then I'll get a better deal. But it's actually the other way around. If you tell somebody how much you have to spend, you're more likely going to get a better deal, because they're going to work whatever angles they have, especially if you're working with an event planner. They're going to look at all the different relationships, the vendor relationships that they have, and see where they can pull from to best maximize your budget. And then it also takes the stress away, because oftentimes people will be like, they're thinking about a Ferrari, but they're more like in the budget of a Kia or something. So you can have a good party either way, but you need to know. So you start with the budget. And then just one little thing too is sometimes people don't think about renting plates or glassware. But then you might spend 3 or 4 times as much on the labor that you hire to wash those dishes. So think about that. Like, think about the personal stuff that you want to buy, or the things that you want to use that are your traditional items, and then what you can bring in, especially like glassware that can be rented. And then that's usually just a take the glass, dump the stuff out, put it back in the crate, and it goes back to the rental company. And so you're going to be charged a minimal price for that versus maybe your $30, $35 an hour labor of the person drying all those glasses. So that's one area.
Great.
I just, definitely want to second that. Even if it's just an intimate gathering of, a dozen people in your home, especially around the holidays, it's a time to make things feel special and really beautiful, and don't pull out the plastic. Paper cocktail napkins are totally acceptable, but otherwise linen, and rent stemware, rent dishes, rent whatever you need. It's very inexpensive and can definitely elevate the mood of even a really small gathering in your home. And then also, kind of to tie in the running around that we all do when we're hosting, there are so many services out there now, like a TaskRabbit.com or something where you can just hire someone by the hour to help you in your home. Even when you just have a few people, you don't want to spend the entire night in the kitchen and people leave and you're exhausted and you feel like you didn't even talk to a single guest. So don't be afraid, even for a small evening, to have someone there to help you set up, clear, wash at the end of the night. It's totally worth the investment.
Mike Doze,
Mike
right?
Doze.
Right.
Even someone like Mike Doze, who is a South Bay native who has a service. He has a mixology cart, and he'll come to your home and he'll set up cocktail service, and it's kind of an entertainment feature for your guests. And then it also takes burden off of you to be replenishing people's drinks and staying on top of that. So there are definitely a lot of professionals that we can draw on to help make the evening go smoothly.
Did everyone try that Thanksgiving buffet with the red martini glasses? I thought that was so cool, the way they served it, but also probably the best buffet I've ever had. Like, Thanksgiving dinner is, I could eat that all year long, but I digress. I want to talk about food because obviously the Thanksgiving meal is pretty iconic, the yams and the sweet potatoes, mashed potatoes, and the turkey. But Kara, tell me a little bit about what's trending right now this year, maybe in the traditional ways to spice up the traditional, but also new flavors, exotic flavors, cultural things that you're seeing that would be fun to introduce to a party.
I think right now a lot of what we're seeing is a little bit of anything goes. So there's a lot of global influences. There's a lot going on in the world right now. And if you notice that chefs kind of take their inspiration from some of what's happening in politics and then they repurpose it into their menus. So you're going to see a lot of spices that have Middle Eastern influences. You're going to see also a lot of comfort food is coming back. Maybe it's just got a little bit of a twist or it's repurposed, a little bit like I did with the caramel apple. But just that down-home Southern style cooking is popular. So for your Thanksgiving menu, you might add something like a Southern style coleslaw with either pomegranates or cranberries and salted nuts or something like that. So just bringing in those really strong comfort foods, but then also not being afraid to take your influence from a lot of these other spices that are coming out in ingredients that are more available. So you're seeing things like game meats more, you're seeing things that people are using things from nose to tail, so no waste, foraging, looking for unique ingredients. And then I think, again, just trying to look at how, when you're doing a whole menu, a lot of what's happening now is just, even though there's global influences in different spices and palettes that people are drawing from, keep it simple, and you're seeing that in restaurants as well, too, that it's just do a couple things really well. Instead of trying to, you don't need to create the French laundry. Just, make it special, really spend time doing a beautiful salad, your traditional favorite, things that have to be on the menu or people won't come back next year. You know how Thanksgiving is that way. You have those things that you absolutely have to do, and then maybe add in one more thing, but just make sure that you keep it simple.
I notice also a lot of menus at restaurants, obviously, but even at parties are catering more towards people with food allergies or restrictions, diets,
Yes.
paleo, gluten-free, you name it. How are you incorporating that into some of the work you're doing, and what have you seen out and about in some of the events in the recent years?
I think it's not an unusual guest anymore. It's the norm. So what you're going to do is you're going to plan to incorporate that into your regular menu, something that's vegetarian, maybe something that's vegan, something that's gluten-free. It's not going to be like, oh God, did she have to come this year? Or did he have to show up this year? He's ruined my whole menu. It's actually just getting incorporated into your menu. And that can be desserts where you're using almond meal or special gluten-free flours. But you don't want to sacrifice flavor, but you're looking for more options for the person that comes to your event. And they're not going to eat the turkey, but they might eat the acorn squash or the butternut squash with some couscous or something in there, and it's interesting for them. And then it's also nice for you to be able to ask your guests in advance, whether you're hiring a caterer or you're working with a personal chef or you're doing it yourself, what is it that you can and can't eat, so there's no surprises. But definitely it's becoming more the norm. So it's not, like I said, it's not the one-off guest that will only eat the potatoes.
Right.
You got to incorporate it into your menu.
Got it. We have Thanksgiving and Christmas, but we actually have Halloween first. So I want to ask you guys, what is your biggest horror story from an event that you've thrown? I love this stuff. So let's start with Kat, since she hasn't spoken in a while.
Okay, this is a weird one. So we had set up a very large, it was actually a holiday event.
Okay.
And oftentimes people want to incorporate, if they can get a good deal on, say, caterer, because they're a friend, they're going to pull their friend in. And this particular family pulled a friend in to cater the event. And the caterer got a little too intoxicated, and she left a hand towel on the stove.
Oh, no.
And, well, yes, fire, right? So it so happened the day prior, I had set up a large music festival. We had done the fire checks. Fire extinguishers were expiring. I'd ran to Home Depot. I had a ton of fire extinguishers in my car. So
Wow.
fluky. When does that happen? So I see what's happening. I see the cat is by the fire. I grab a cat. I ran out to my car with a cat in my arm. I exchanged the fire extinguishers for the cat, locked the cat in my car, run back in. We were able to put it out, and everything was fine. We had to end up, I think we ordered In-N-Out or something just to keep the guests happy, because if you're drunk, nothing better than In-N-Out, right?
Absolutely.
And yeah, I would say that was one of the more memorable ones.
Yeah, definitely. Karen?
It was actually a corporate event, and it wasn't me, luckily. I don't have like a good memory of something that I did, luckily. But this particular caterer that showed, it was Wolfgang Puck. It was a big caterer, and they were running a little bit late because we were in a pretty hard get-to area. And the person that was rolling in the cart with all of like these hors d'oeuvres, they hit like a little divot in the driveway in the main entrance of the house, and everything flew over. And I just have these visions of my boss like kicking rolls like into the like foliage, because we knew that people were going to be coming in soon. It was like something creamy and some dip or something. So that was like the most interesting. There wasn't a good recovery. I mean, other than,
No In-N-Out there.
we kind of got as much cleaned as we could before people got there, and you just roll with it.
Yeah.
And I think one other time, this was me. I had an event, and they were supposed to drop off a fryer, because one of the things on the menu is fried, fish and chips. And they need like the fuel for that. Yeah, so they decided that whoever delivered it, it'd be really cool to put it like on the other side of the house, where it wouldn't like be near where the cars were coming in, like totally like hide, yeah. But they decided also as well that they weren't going to answer the phone that day. So we spent like almost an hour looking just for the propane tank for the fryer. Luckily we found it, but it was just, it was like, what? Those things happen all the time. But if we had had an event planner, then they would have made sure that that was right in the place that we needed it.
Very good.
Do you have one?
I do. I have a few, but I'll try to minimize. But much like Kat, I think my worst horror stories are related to fire. I had a dinner party where a guest hair caught on fire. So, and I don't want this to discourage anyone from candle use, because I will always advocate for candles, and it's worth the atmosphere that they're going to create for any occasion. But I did have one guest lean over an open flame and catch his hair on fire, and his. He had long hair, but it did not end badly. It smelled for a few minutes, but it was very exciting. Everyone really freaked out. And as I mentioned in the demonstration earlier, I like to put a little moss in the bottom of the candle and the candlestick. It looks kind of fun. It anchors the candle in there. It will catch on fire, and I've on multiple occasions had the candle burn down, the moss catches on fire. And one time, my mom thought it would be really romantic and charming to have just a single candle burning in the windowsill for a Christmas gathering, and left it burning, thankfully long after the guests had left, and around 2 a.m, the candle burned down, and the moss caught on fire, and the shutters caught on fire, and the whole kitchen caught on fire. And it was like 2 weeks before Christmas.
Merry
and
Christmas.
She woke up, got the garden hose, put the fire out herself, and the house didn't burn down, but the kitchen was pretty badly burned.
Yikes.
So don't forget to blow out your candles at the end of the
please.
evening, is the moral of the
Are there
story.
any candles lit right now? I want them out, like right now. I just have...
I'm a burn surgeon, so
Oh, get his card, just in case. I knew we were missing someone on the panel. So my last question, this is kind of a polarizing one. Eggnog or egg no? I don't like it, but some people really feel strongly about this, and I want to ask you three.
Yes. Egg maybe. So it's if there's the eggnog, but then there's also the cognac and the spiced rum.
There you
and
go.
It's
Okay.
Then egg, yes.
Got it.
Yeah,
Got it.
sure.
I'm all for that. Okay. I redeem my distaste for eggnog if that's happening. Any questions from the audience? I would like to, if anybody has anything they want to ask our panel, we'll have them up here. They'll also be here shortly after if you want to reach out to them. But anybody? Anything? No? Okay. Then I'm going to take this moment to bring up Todd Copeland. He's the president of ASC, and he's going to talk a little bit about Dornbracht, which is one of the brands that is carried here at Ferguson. Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys. Stay here. Yeah. We'll get you a mic.
I want to introduce myself. My name is Todd Copeland, and I'm president of ACS, Architectural Commercial Specification, and we're a sales agency that covers the southwestern part of the United States and Hawaii. So our agency has been the representative for Dornbracht for the last 19 years. And Dornbracht is a German faucet company that's a fourth-generation family-owned company that's based in Isserlohn, just a couple hours north of Frankfurt. So if you're, is anybody, I just want to see a quick show of hands. Is anybody familiar with Dornbracht here in the audience?
Yep. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, we have some Dornbracht fans. Super. Good to know, because Dornbracht is considered really a luxury premium product. It is still made in Germany. In fact, not only are they made, the faucets are still made the way the faucets were made in the 1800s by bench casting, using sand casting and whatnot. Most of all of their faucets are done that way, but even their parts, 90% of their parts come within about a 50-mile radius of the Dornbracht family or factory. So you can say almost 100% of the Dornbracht product is a German-made product. And there's not too many faucet companies left in our industry that really are still made in Germany, and almost 100% made in Germany. Still made by hand. Almost everything that's done with the beginning of the faucet in the sand casting, all the way done to the polishing of the product. There's still a lot of handwork that's done to create the Dornbracht product. And when you look at some of their finishes, if you're the terms that people always kind of are reminiscent of Dornbracht, are thinking of platinum and whatnot. Those are not, those finishes that with Dornbracht that are platinum, they are real platinum. It's not some kind of marketing term. It is real platinum on that faucet, and rose gold has a very high content of 18 karat gold. and they do have something called Dornbracht, which has become very, very popular in the brass category now, and that has a very large content of 20 karat gold in it. So
Pretty.
when somebody says to you, okay, why is that Dornbracht faucet, that $2,000 Dornbracht faucet, why is it more expensive than that Moen faucet's that $200? And so there's some tangible, real reasons why there is a different and a cost difference, why Dornbracht is more expensive, probably the most expensive production faucet company in the industry today. So having said that, one of our best partners, I have to say, in the country for us, and this is a long-standing relationship, almost 25 years now, our largest distributor in the country is Ferguson, and we thank Ferguson tonight for putting this on. Ferguson has over 700 showrooms in the country, and Dornbracht is a nationally preferred vendor. So we're really appreciative of the Dornbracht and Ferguson relationship.